All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're unpacking a case that has literally baffled investigators for well over a decade. We're looking at the chilling, meticulously planned 2008 unsolved murder of an ambitious 24-year-old real estate agent in Victoria, British Columbia. We're going to break down the timeline, the evidence, and the theories of a crime that was somehow surgically precise, yet intensely frenzied.
We really have to start with the central, honestly terrifying paradox of this whole crime. It was a flawless trap set for a young woman, right? But it left absolutely zero trace of the ghosts who pulled it off. The sheer level of premeditation involved here continues to haunt law enforcement to this day. They left no DNA, no fingerprints, and they basically just vanished into a quiet neighborhood without anyone seeing their escape. Now, before we get into the actual mechanics of this trap, it's totally crucial to understand who Lindsay was. She was this fiercely driven, incredibly warm-hearted professional, and her success was just taking off in Victoria. I mean, by 24, she had already closed millions of dollars in property transactions. And, crucially, and you'll want to remember this, she had really firm anti-drug values. Keep that detail in the back of your mind because it becomes incredibly important as we look at the theories surrounding her death later on. Section 1. A $1 million trap. So, Lindsay's promising trajectory took a really dark turn in late January 2008, when the trap was first set in motion through a highly unusual phone call from a mysterious woman. And I mean, this initial call came with an absolute barrage of red flags. The caller had this thick, potentially fake accent. They were in a massive rush to buy a $1 million vacant, newly built home within days. And perhaps the biggest red flag of all, they gave a referral source that Lindsay couldn't trace back to anyone she actually knew. Despite having a terrible gut feeling about all of these bizarre requests, Lindsay's sheer drive to succeed pushed her to accept the showing. She even saved the caller's number in her phone under the name $1 Million. Section 2, February 2nd, 2008. This brings us right to the day of the showing. A quiet, newly built cul-de-sac at 1702 D'Souza Place. This is where the trap was finally sprung. When you look at this minute-by-minute breakdown, it reveals a terrifyingly narrow window of opportunity. At 5:30 p.m., Lindsay greets this unknown couple. Just 8 minutes later, at 5:38, her boyfriend Jason texts her that he's just minutes away to check on her. But at 5:41 p.m., Lindsay's phone makes an accidental pocket dial to a friend, and it captures the muffled sounds of a sudden, brutal attack. By 6:05, Jason is dialing 911. It shows you just how closely Jason missed intercepting these killers. If he had arrived literally just a few minutes earlier, the entire outcome might have been completely different. Section 3. The Ghost Killers. So when Jason and his friend finally found a way into the locked house by hopping a fence and going through the open back doors, they discovered a scene that completely baffled the incoming investigators. And the crime scene itself? It presented a massive, massive contradiction. On one hand, you've got this incredibly professional setup, a burner phone purchased months prior under a fake name, a specifically targeted empty location, and perpetrators who left absolutely zero DNA. But then, on the flip side, the execution itself was completely different. It was an intensely emotional, frenzied overkill. It was totally disorganized, and Lindsay showed no defensive wounds at all, meaning the attack was swift and entirely unexpected. This wild contradiction is exactly what makes the profile of these killers so impossible to pin down. Section 4. Suspects and Alibis. Faced with zero physical evidence and killers who essentially vanished into thin air, police had to methodically evaluate every single rumor, theory, and suspect in Lindsay's inner circle. Now, we've got to remain completely objective here, especially with the difference between the official investigation and wild public speculation. Despite rampant online rumors and even resulting defamation lawsuits, law enforcement rigorously investigated and officially cleared both Lindsay's boyfriend, Jason, and his mother, Shirley. The cartel theory was also thoroughly debunked. The police found zero digital or forensic links connecting her inner circle to the burner phones or the crime scene. Obviously, as the person who actually found the body, Jason was heavily scrutinized. But here's the thing. His timeline was absolutely rock solid. CCTV footage from an auto shop proved it was physically impossible for him to be at the house during the 5:41 p.m. attack. On top of that, he passed a polygraph test and fully cooperated with police reenactments. The facts simply and entirely ruled him out as a suspect. Section 5. The Cartel Connection. With the immediate inner circle totally cleared, investigators looked outward. This led them to investigate a massive Calgary drug bust involving an acquaintance of Lindsay's, exploring a potential cartel connection. But, that theory actually fell apart pretty fast. Remember Lindsay's firm anti-drug values we talked about earlier? Yeah, there was zero evidence she was involved in that world or acting as any kind of informant. Plus, the key cartel players from that bust were already behind bars. And, most importantly, the intensely personal, totally disorganized nature of the stabbing strongly contradicted the clinical, message-sending execution style normally used by organized crime syndicates. It just didn't fit. Which leads us to Section 6, a personal vendetta. By eliminating the cartel and the immediate family, police were left with one chilling, overarching consensus about why this happened. The leading police theory today boils down to one really chilling consensus. They believe this was a targeted killing, meticulously planned by someone close to her for reasons of personal hatred, betrayal, or a perceived threat. Basically, the belief is that someone deeply resentful within Lindsay's broader social orbit orchestrated this hit. They likely had inside knowledge of her schedule, but they used outside actors, that mysterious couple at the door, to actually carry out the act, keeping their own hands completely clean. It was personal, and it was hateful. To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of the effort to find who did this, just consider this number. Over 2,000 persons of interest have been logged in this case. Police have conducted over 1,500 interviews and executed dozens of search warrants. This is a massive, massive investigation that continues to this day. And remember, in Canada, there is no statute of limitations on murder. The police are just waiting for that one final puzzle piece. So as we wrap up this explainer, we're really left with the most haunting question of all. How could someone close enough to Lindsay to orchestrate her literal perfect murder keep it a secret for over 17 years? Who is holding on to a secret this incredibly dark, and when will that final puzzle piece finally fall into place? Thank you for walking through the facts of this tragic and complex case with us today. Keep asking questions and never stop seeking the truth.